Welcome to Twin Speak, Christian music and other stuff. I'm Joe.
And I'm Matt.
And we're twin brothers who, like many of you, were raised on and by Christian music. Listen as we dive into the melodies and lyrics. We'll explore the artists and bands that shaped our upbringing, from the synthesizing energy of Krumbacher to the hard rock anthems of Petra, Skillet, Whiteheart, Striper, and more. We'll share our favorite memories, the concerts that blew our minds, and the tracks that still resonate with us today. In each episode, we'll not only review iconic albums and songs, but also invite special guests, fellow musicians, fans, and maybe even some of our childhood heroes to join in on the conversation. Expect plenty of surprises, from deep dives into the stories behind the songs and twin banter that comes along with being twin brothers. So whether you're a die-hard fan or just curious, we promise to keep it entertaining. Get ready for some epic throwbacks, insightful discussions, and of course, lots of laughter. Let's celebrate the music that brought us together and continues to inspire us. Welcome to the journey of Twin Speak.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Twin Speak, Christian music and other stuff. Yep, and I'm joined by Matt Prainito, the lesser half of me.
I'm really starting. I was born first.
Yeah.
And if you remember the movie Twins, like Arnold Schwarzenegger said that Danny DeVito got the leftover, like just the leftovers. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was strong and masculine and confident. And
I appreciate that, Matt. Thank you for saying those things about me. So, anyways,
no, that's not quite where I was going. Quite where I was going. I'm just you're kind of the leftover, but that's fine. That's fine. You keep going.
Still God's chosen. So, anyways, we are also joined. So, Twin Speak, Christian music and other stuff. But even more importantly than Matt and I for today, we are really, really blessed to have Mark and Brynn Gersmehl on with us. And you'll know Brynn from her days in the first Christian all-female rock band, Rachael Rachael, and Mark from Whiteheart. One of the founding members of Whiteheart. So we're super stoked to have you guys on. Thank you guys seriously so much for taking the time to be with us tonight.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah.
Well,
top-rated show on television for us.
And don't you guys do like interior design? That's different.
Oh yeah, those twins.
Yeah.
we should start that, Joe.
Well, one of you could grow a beard and differentiate yourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt,
Joe can't grow a beard. I need a cat.
That's what
actually.
Matt,
Joe,
you go ahead.
I knew you were going to go there.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's all right, Joe. We need to do a makeover on just you.
Yeah,
just you. Okay? So we don't need to do a house. We're just going to do a makeover on you. So thank you, Ben. That's a great suggestion. You notice Brenn's the one that suggested makeover. She didn't say thank you. She actually meant you. Start flossing and
thank you.
We do a lot with you.
Appreciate that. So, anyways, but yeah, no, thank you guys for being here. I mean, yeah, it's true. What else is on? Iowa Hawkeyes women's basketball. That's one thing. That's what's going on upstairs. So if you hear a lot of screaming, that's what's happening in my house. But here we're really, really, really happy to have you guys on. Both Matt and I have been fans of both of you. Going back from Rachael Rachael to Whiteheart, and really were raised not just on Christian music, but I like to say by Christian music, because that's where we learned so much of our faith, our theology, our growth in Christ, who to depend on when we're going through our own rough times and upbringings. And a lot of that is credit to the music that both of you guys have been involved with and continue to be involved with. So first of all, thank you guys for your music and your gift.
You're very kind. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Really, truly awesome. So, but we want to go ahead and kind of jump into this just a little bit. So now both of you play keyboards, and Brynn, I believe you also play some guitar too as well, because that's kind of what Soul Breather has.
Yes, because there's not room for two keyboard players in one household. Well, not when they play like he does, because, please, I'm like nowhere near his wonderful ability. But yes, I play guitar, but he plays guitar too. You just wouldn't want to hear it publicly, but he does know how to make chords and stuff.
I track some things.
Make chords and stuff.
Make your shapes.
I'm a trash can player. Strings on a round file like that. If it's rock and roll, I can trash it out. But she has a wonderful gift for finger picking.
Love that.
So one of the things and she's such an amazing writer, as you know. But
he's so nice.
But when
you should marry him.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, that was a discussion, wasn't it? So, it's and as you guys as guitar players would even know, is there's something about the wood. There's something about an acoustic guitar, and the sound and the feel of it in the right hands, that makes lyrics blossom.
Yeah.
And she is marvelous at creating the intimacy of that wood and that string with the sound of her voice and those words. It's a gift.
Wow.
Thank you, honey.
You're welcome.
That's
But now
It's so sweet.
For dessert? No.
Yeah, dessert.
There's your brownie points right there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
No,
Yeah.
it's the truth. She's a remarkably gifted writer, but I love the fact that, and she's a really good keyboard player. That's not the point. It's just this other gift that she has just pulls from a deeper place.
Wow.
No,
Wow.
that's great. And I do agree. I mean, when I play guitar, it's just playing without trying to where words come. It's like, okay, if I can pour myself into whatever is coming out through my fingers, then usually words come, which sometimes, and usually it comes from scripture and comes from deep places. And so that's really good that the two of you have that, that you can complement each other in that. And so really cool.
Yeah.
Where did you learn, like, where did you get started in music and maybe we'll start with you, Brynn, like, you get started from a certain place, whether it's lessons or sometimes you just pick up an instrument and just start playing. I'm curious to know for each of you.
Well, I'm an adequate musician. I'm not. No, I mean I'm adequate. I can play my part and play it well and very musical, but don't.
It's just
Put
gonna
the paper down.
It's going to write not true on it.
But my mom played piano, and she got my sister, like, most parents get their kids, try to get them into lessons when they're young. And my sister's 3 years older than I am, and I think I was 5 or 6, and my sister was playing like the Chipmunk song or, some little kiddie song. And I went up to the piano and just started playing it because I'd heard her play it, and I was able to pick it out. And so my mom said, I guess we need to get Brynn some lessons. So I really took to it. I was the piano teacher's dream because I loved it, and I practiced all the time, all through junior high school. I mean, I would get in trouble because we lived in a very small apartment in Los Angeles where I grew up, and my parents got divorced when I was quite young, so it was just my mom and my sister and I. And my sister would call my mom at work and say, "Mom, Brynn won't stop playing." So it's just like, I don't blame her. I mean, it's like very small and you can't get away from it. It was before the days of all these electric pianos with headphones and stuff like that. I'm sure they were around. It wasn't something that the average household would have. We just had an upright piano. So that's how I started. And then I started writing songs when I was in 5th grade. And I don't know. I wasn't inspired by somebody telling me that. I just started doing it. And so that's how I got started.
Wow, that's great. And do you still remember, out of curiosity, the lyrics to any of the songs that you wrote in 5th grade?
Your dad's
I remember one that Joe wrote.
Well, I don't remember the lyrics, but I will tell you this story that I found like a yellow notebook page, maybe 20 years ago now. We've been married so long. Things seem like they weren't that long ago, and they were. And it was this song I wrote called "My Daddy and Me." I got to live with my dad for 1 year when I was in 5th grade, and it's not like this was a stellar hit or anything, but I looked at the song, and it had A, B, C form. It had form, and all the syllables fell in the right places, and it rhymed in the right places. and no one taught me any of that stuff. And so it was interesting because Mark and I both looked at this, and it was like, look at that. That's like amazing that just God put that naturally, that just understanding of what a good structure of a song is without me taking a class, without me having a mentor to show me. And then, of course, you know, you have to write a lot of bad songs to learn how to write some good ones. So.
Yeah. There's one here that Joe wrote. You want to listen to it,
Matt?
It's not very good, but you know, he got better.
How do you stop
I
this?
think. Okay.
I don't have a stop button on my. There
I
it is.
have it.
I just hit that.
I have it.
There's my
Yeah.
there's my
Oh,
bleep
that-
button. I'll just stop you.
Stop me from doing it.
Jeez.
No, but you're right. I do agree. You have to write, and even through the process, at least I've noticed, like I'll write a lot of bad songs, and then I'll get to a point where it's Joe. Thank you for agreeing. But then I'll get to a point where I'm like, you hit a pocket, a sweet spot. Almost you're like, wow, the words come together, the scripture comes together, the meaning comes together. And you just realize, okay, it was worth me going through this creative process to get here. It could be frustrating, but that's really cool that you were able to look back and to see that God put that structure in you at such a young age.
Well, and it helps if you move to the future from 5th grade, when you actually really can feel the presence of the Holy Spirit. I mean, he can write things I can't. You know, I think Mark and I both had this conversation about how sometimes you look at something that you wrote maybe many years ago, and you see what it did to minister to people, and you barely even have a memory of being a part of that, and you wrote it.
Yeah.
But it was like, you know, not every song. Wouldn't that be fantastic? It was every song. But you know, there are times when it's like a song that's really touched a lot of people, and you realize at that moment, you understand like how Scripture was inspired to be written, and you know, because if they knew, they had no idea it was going to go on like it has. But
Right.
yeah, there's that.
There's that.
Described what you described, I call the April Rain moment, because I think, and I've written so many bad songs, and I think you do learn almost as much from a bad song as you do from a good song. But when you get that feeling, when there's that confluence of those things you wonderfully described, it is the smell of April rain.
Yeah.
I think it's God's way of giving us just a little glimmer of what it was like for him to make the world.
I love the way that. I don't think I've ever heard it put that way. So thank you. That's
You'd think he was like a songwriter, the way he talks.
I know, but it totally makes
think
sense when that creative, when he is he is the creator, and then he gives us, because we're made in the likeness of him, just a smidgen of the ability to create as well, and then blesses that. You just see it truly, like I said, just it blossoms and it grows, and it's, you know, we get that, we just get just that taste of that. So that is cool. I'm going to remember that, because I've never heard it quite that way. So,
and in Seattle, when we get April rain, I'm going to think much differently about that rain. We get a lot of rain, so that would already be 5
Think about that in May and June.
May, June, and then it gets warmer. But I'd love to hear as well from you, Mark, just about where you got started in music, where you learned how to play keyboard. Was it school band?
Well, I grew up in a musical home. My mother was a conservatory graduate on piano.
Wow.
And both my parents went to Lutheran schools originally, and then my mother went to the Minneapolis Conservatory of Music. But they both played pipe organ. And my mom was quite a bit better. But my dad would play by ear. And he actually he had a band, 4 guys and a gal that was on the radio. I mean, he could play by ear and do all kinds of things like that, and they're both multi-talented. He was actually an English professor, and she was the musical person, but they cross-fertilized marvelously. So there was that in the home. But then they got me, and my mother was the best teacher I ever had, even when I went to college. And I had some wonderful teachers, but she was just the best. And what I loved about my mother, she was also the best listener that I've ever met in my life. So when these kids would come and sit down and learn, and she taught keyboard harmony within the first 2 months. These kids were plunking out chords and songs. They knew triads, they knew major minor scales. I mean, it was pretty amazing. But so that was formative as well. But every Christmas, we would have the top of her dresser would be covered with cards from her former students, because they got so much more than just piano. Yes, Mrs. Gersmehl, I'm still playing, but thank you so much, because she listened to them. She listened to their lives. And 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line, they're still sending her cards because the investment that she made in their lives. Wow. So there's always a great lesson. I'll kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, and listening. I always felt like my mom needed to add that. But then I actually got started playing trombone, and I got in a band when I was 15 years old. There were these guys, three years older than I was. They were really good musicians. Actually, one went on to be the dean of the School of Music at Millikan University. But they all were really good players, and I was fortunate that they saw something in me. And so I was in this band. I was playing in bars and wedding receptions. But I learned the fundamentals of what it's like to be in a band. Why the kick drum needs to fall in love with the bass, and they're after, and just foundational things about how bands are built, how songs are built. And but then I went to college and got a music degree, but I studied with this. I thought for a while I was going to be in classical music. I studied with the second chair in the Chicago Symphony, and who was just a marvelous man. And so I thought I wanted to do that, and then I realized I really hate wearing tuxedos, and I'm not joking. That was a big part of the factor. And the other thing is, if you're a trombone player, it's you're in the third movement of the Brahms, and it's 240 bars, and then you come in a high pianissimo A after 240 bars, trying to keep your mouth warm, So anyway, then I did a lot of sessions, and I played with the OJs a little bit, and but I played with the Gaithers, and it's a whole nother story. But I don't even know, and this is. The Lord has been so kind to me, because there have always been people that have come up at different junctures of my life who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And it was the third time that they asked. I mean, I got hired out in college to play sessions over at their studio. I don't even know how they got my name, but they must have sensed there was something a little different about me in whatever, and they asked me to be part of the band. And I turned them down 2 times. The third time, I took the audition because I had a wonderful dear family, and in wonderful dear families, sometimes really hard things can happen. And as you both know, and from your work in song and in ministry, and anyway, so I felt like I needed to be back home again in Indiana, and it just turned out to be a marvelous time. I mean, I auditioned, and 2 days later we were playing in Roanoke, Virginia, and Hershey, Pennsylvania for 13,000 people at a shot. It's So, it was. But those people, they are the real deal. Those two, they are the real deal. They are just as down to earth and normal, but the heart for ministry is enormous in the two of them. You can't fake who they are. And so after 2 years of playing trombone, the keyboard job opened up, and I auditioned for that, and fortunately I was able to get that. So, but then that got me really started, because one weekend I finally decided, I've been writing things for years and just throwing them in the corner, whether it was jazz heads or whatever. It didn't matter. But I decided that I was going to go take Gloria Gaither my lyrics And you have to understand that every week everybody
Giving.
did this. And so, but I handed her my lyrics, and then the next week, like, oh, geez, and then the next week,
Sneak
she
in.
had brought them back like the good school teacher she was, and written some things in the margin. And she said things like, well, this is a really good line, but can you see it really doesn't belong in the body of the thought of this song where she could have said, goofball. This makes no sense. But she was so kind, and that's what was the genesis of getting me started as a writer, which I am so grateful to both of them. I mean, they're both such good writers, but then the blessing passes on. When people have a heart of ministry, whether they're cooking or they're painting the walls or they're out in the parking lot directing traffic or whatever, they're passing it on.
It's so true.
They are passing it on.
Yeah, gosh, that is very true, and that's I guess that's kind of the thing of trying to convey to people is that whatever it is you do, as Scripture says, do everything you do as unto the Lord. I mean, it's if we do that with that type of motivation and with the understanding that, hey, God puts us in the path of anybody for any purpose to be a blessing to others and be a blessing to Him, and we live our lives in that way. It's not just the gifts we have; it's the availability, right? To say, okay, God, whatever it is that you want me to do. So with that, with Gloria looking at your lyrics, did she ever say, okay, I like these, let's go ahead and do it? Was there ever a moment that she just, hey,
well, they weren't really pitched to her, but or to them, it was just an exercise in to say, what do you think of these? And is there any hope in the Western Hemisphere for what I'm doing? Interestingly, then, the 5 of the 6 original Whiteheart members were in the backup band of the Bill Gaither trio at the same time that Sandy Patty was singing in it.
Oh, okay.
So, okay. I mean, there were always crazy talent. I can remember when Amy Grant came in and her brother-in-law was wearing these lime green golf pants and carrying their boxes of cassettes. I'm like, dude, you're going to need way more cassettes than that. Or Carmen, he was there, or Don Francisco was another guy that was. They always open up their stage to give other people chances, and so anyway, we would play the sound check, and after sound check, I mean, you're rockers, and we're starting to write stuff together. We're in an arena with a sound system, so we started playing stuff, and it's. Anyway, they invited us to the Praise Gathering, which was a wonderful event with great speakers, great musicians, but definitely a more conservative band, a lot of Southern gospel people in there, and they let us. We made our first record, and we had not played a show before we made our first record. That's what happens when you got studio players and staff players. And boy, we have a lot to learn about stagecraft and all that stuff. But we played, and it was not universally embraced for its rock and roll nature at first.
Yeah.
And the very next day, we're supposed to play, and who stands on the front of the stage and says to the audience, this may not be exactly your kind of music, but it's really good music, and these are wonderful young men, and they're very talented. So even if you don't necessarily like this kind of music, I urge you to listen to all it is, because I stand with them.
Well, I love that.
Wow.
Great support.
Yes.
That's
class woman.
That's so incredible. That I've only heard the best things about both Bill and Gloria. From any interview that I've ever heard. I mean, I've never had a chance to meet them, but any interview that I've ever heard or any interaction that anybody I've known has ever had with them is just like, man, they are just cream of the crop people, and real, and they're very real. Like, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And they just love people, and that's cool. So Whiteheart was basically birthed out of the Gaither band then.
Gaithers.
Yeah, it was, and as so many things were, but other artists that he put his imprimatur on and said, listen to this, and so there was just a high level of talent in the band at the time too, and as there always were, because that's just another thing about them is, they're really good at what they do, but they're not intimidated. putting other people in places so that they look better necessarily. Or they have to stand alone. They know they're going to look better if we're all in this together.
Right.
And which is a vastly different perspective. And so we started when I moved down here and we were all playing sessions and stuff. And the way it really worked out was sometimes we do a late, in this town they run 10, 2, and 6. They have lots of times for sessions for union and things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
We would do like a 6 to 9 where we'd be doing somebody's record and they would leave and we would get permission to stay. So we'd stumble out of the studio sometimes at 5 or 6 in the morning, go to Dunkin' Donuts and say, "What did you just do?" So, and the first demos that we all pitched were from those sessions that came from late at night.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy. Jeez. Man, I can.
So there was some April rain in those sessions.
Maybe. There definitely was.
Some moments.
Now I'll say, and then Brynn, because actually, Mark, you kind of answered a question, which is where did Whiteheart come from? And I'll say, for Matt and I, we were probably 8 years old, watching real videos, and all of a sudden, He's Returning comes on, and we're like, whoa.
From this album.
Oh yeah, from that album. And we're like, well, we got to go out and buy that. And we went out and we bought the cassette tape and listened to it. And gosh, yeah, we probably were about 8, 9, 10, probably 8, 9. And
easily.
And we're listening to it and we're like, this is very almost gospel-y like church style music.
Mm-hmm.
You have some of those songs. And then we were watching real videos. And all of a sudden, this other song comes on where there's these guys with crazy hair, and they're singing about a car. And we're like, what the? Who is this?
And the keyboard player has his sunglasses on the back of his head as he's singing. And we're like, what is going on here? Like, this is not the same band.
Yeah. So we're watching this, and we're like, oh, God, made convertible. Okay. And then we get to the end, and we're like, Whiteheart? This is Whiteheart? I mean, you took kind of a drastic, change from going from the album that we did have, and then of course we got "Don't Wait for the Movie," and then went on to the other albums, and of course "Freedom" and "Powerhouse," and so you guys have just a great run there. But yeah, a lot of that started from watching a video. But then Matt, I'm going to go ahead and yield this to you because I was asleep.
Yeah, I was. We watched. So this is where we found Christian music. It was through this show on TBN called Real Videos. I don't know if you recall this show, but it was Matt and Lori Crouch.
Oh yes. I know Real Videos.
We loved it, and our dad turned us on to it to say because we were watching some secular videos because we just were drawn to music.
Well, Matt was.
He said,
I was reading my Bible.
You
Matt,
keep saying that. You keep saying that, but that's actually not true at all. I think
it's not
eating
true.
Twinkies or something in the other room. That's fine. Yeah, see, you're a liar. You need to go read the Bible now.
All right.
But we would stay up late because I think on Fridays it was a repeat of Saturday at maybe 10 o'clock. But then Saturday you'd have like the new episode, and my brother fell asleep. We were trying to stay awake to watch it. And suddenly this all-girl band came on. And I was just watching it, and I'm like, oh, my gosh. And I woke him up. I said, Joe, you've got to see this. Like, there's these girls, and they're rocking. And I woke him up to go and look at what was Rachael. And
was that just a video, or we hosted Real Videos?
Did you? Oh,
yes.
I never saw that. Did we see that, Joe?
I did see it. I remember seeing that. Yeah, but that wasn't what we saw. Oh. We just saw a music video come on, which was "Carry On, My Wayward Son." Mm-hmm. It was that one, but we were both like, "What? Women can rock? Like, is that even a thing? Like, is this?"
Yeah.
And not realizing, that not only can women do it, but they do it very, very well. and
very well. So that was. It's just a fun moment when you look and you're watching and you just. I think that's the thing is that videos drew people in. It's very different today. You have to go and almost seek out videos. But videos you'd watch and you'd be able to not only see, and especially during this time when both of your bands were making music, was all the music on the surface was about the Lord. Like it wasn't hidden beneath anything. You didn't have to search too far to find that there's scripture there, there's meaning there, and really a way for people to connect their faith to music versus reading the word, and not waiting for the movie. No pun intended, but maybe a little. And so just thank you to both of you, because we grew up watching your music and really seeing the Lord come to life in ways when we were struggling with our faith, struggling with broken homes, struggling with, okay, everything around us seems to be changing as far as we know. But God is the same yesterday, today, forever. That is the firm foundation. But music really drew us into a lot of that, and the two of you both had an impact on that. So just thank you for writing what you do, and just appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
For sure.
Very humbled and honored.
How did okay, so Brynn, Rachael, how did Rachael come about?
All right. So Jenny York, which was our original bass player, the tall, beautiful brunette, she actually played on the second album and is on the cover, but then she left the band right after we finished recording, and she's the traffic person in LA in the helicopter.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, really?
I think she still does
Wait.
it too.
Jennifer York.
Jennifer York, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! I remember watching the news and hearing that. Yes,
That's right.
That's
me too.
crazy.
Oh, that is
okay.
crazy.
Okay, now that connects to Jennifer York on traffic. Yeah. Okay.
Excuse me. So she got a vision for having an all-girl band, and she used to be in New York with.
She worked for Good Morning America, but she also worked at WSIX online down Long Island.
He remembers more than I do. Always.
But mostly meaningless things.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyway, she, I guess, Whiteheart was doing something somewhere when
King's
she was,
College.
and Billy
Westchester
Smiley,
County.
being the ever I will produce people person, had a conversation with her, and she told him about her vision, and he said, well, if you ever do this thing, here's my card, or whatever he did back then. So then she ended up in LA eventually, and she had this vision that she felt like was something that the Lord wanted her to do, and she found Helly, our guitar player, and she found Cheryl Jewell, our singer, who was amazing. Night after night. And then they approached my roommate at the time and asked her to be a part of it, because she was singer, writer, keyboard player, and she just wasn't interested. But she said, well, I have a roommate and she might be interested. I'm like, I'm not interested. I mean, I had come out of drug addiction into a relationship with Christ, and I was still kind of young in my faith, maybe 3 years, 4 years, something. And I just wasn't thinking about that. I was writing songs for my new love, Jesus.
Yeah.
So my writing that went away, of course, when I was doing drugs and stuff like that for many, many years, started to come back, and I was writing songs about the Lord. And but I never had any aspirations of like, oh, I want to do this, so for whatever. It just never entered my mind. So Cheryl asked me to do that, and I said, well, okay, well, whatever. I'm singing a song at church this Sunday. And so she came, and she loved the song, and then I met with them, and then just through prayer, and I thought, okay, well, sure, why not? I'll do this thing. So we got together, and the hardest thing was to find a drummer, of course, because it has to be a woman.
Yeah.
It has to be a good, solid rock drummer, and she has to be a believer in Jesus and called to do the music, because those two things aren't necessarily the same thing.
No. Yeah.
And just through a friend that owned a music store, I became friends with him because I would go in there and play the keyboards all the time. He knew Jenny Sparks, and so we met her, and we got a band together, and we did a. I don't remember. I don't even know if we had her yet when we did a showcase. We did our showcase at there's a music school in Hollywood. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like kind of well known, except by me, obviously. And we did this showcase, and I saw the video of it. Like I found it like when we were converting VHS to digital stuff in our lives, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't that good. What are we wearing? It was like embarrassing. What are we wearing? Why is my hair like that? But I guess it was Lynn Kieseker from Word Records. He was an A&R person, and Billy had gotten him to come out and see our showcase. And he saw enough in us that he thought that there was something there, and we signed a deal, just like that.
Wow.
Yeah, talk about a different world, right?
Yeah.
And so we had made a demo and stuff with Billy. He had heard the demo, and then he came and saw us, and he thought, okay, we can do something with this group. I mean, we've got to change their clothes, as I'm sure what he was thinking. And they did too. Yeah. They dress you up, and they take you to the hairdresser and all that. And but that is how the band started.
Wow.
And the name, Rachael Rachael.
Yeah.
It has absolutely no meaning whatsoever. We were called. I know. I should make something up because that's so just boring.
No,
That'd be great.
Okay, so Jennifer York, we called her Yorkie. Yorkie she called us Treya, which is heart spelled backwards.
Oh.
Just awful.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just awful.
We're Treya.
We're Treya. So like, our original, what do you call it's not headshots, the original like photo that you get, the black and white, and it's got the writing on the bottom. And,
your glossies and
that whole thing. It said Treya on it. So Cheryl worked at a management company on Sunset.
A really big.
A very big. They did Bill
right?
Cosby and
oh wow,
like big.
Yeah.
And so we had that advantage of having them support us. It was two twin Jewish brothers.
And you could see them a lot, whether you realized it or not, because they were like third row behind home plate at Dodger Stadium.
Oh, is that right? Oh, how funny.
The Brokaw brothers. And so they were like, the name's got to go. And so they weren't actually our managers. It was their company. And Bob Angelotti was our manager, and he was under their purview. And so we just thought, well, what are some women's names in the Bible and blah, blah, blah. And just like, oh, well, what about, the Rachel? Okay, well, let's double it, Rachael Rachael. And that's honestly the boring story about the name.
It's funny because I never saw anybody named Rachel in the band, and I'm like, huh. Now you did have Robin for a period of time from the choir.
Yes, she was our third bass player, actually.
Yeah,
okay,
but she wasn't on an album. I think she just toured with you a little bit.
She did,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And we were choir fans, so
good.
Robin.
Yeah, she was a great addition to the band.
Yeah, she
really was.
She fit.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. So okay. So now you have Rachael Rachael. You have Whiteheart. You guys are both flung into. You're out on the road, and you end up touring together for a period of time too. Is that correct? Now is that when you guys met, or what's that story look like?
Yeah.
Well, the first time we met was on the Way to My Heart album, the first album.
Yeah.
Because back in those days, you didn't have home studios. Everything was very expensive. You're renting out a studio, so you're working till like 3 a.m. because you've got to get it done. Because you can't add a day. I mean, not on Christian music budgets. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And we're not Taylor Swift. And so the last day was keyboard overdubs, and they hired Gersh to do them because, I mean, I don't know how to do that quickly, come up with sounds and get it all right and then play the part, and it's just so let's hire that part out. You know, I paid the basic stuff, but he would do like all the overdub
You
stuff.
could have done all that.
Well, it would have cost more money. So anyway, he comes in and does that, and that's the first time I met him, and I thought, well, he's kind of cute, but he's kind of weird. Like he's a runner.
That remains true.
He's a runner.
Yeah, it does. And
Runners are weird.
he's like, you know, into exercise and all this stuff, and I'm like I will if I have to, and that kind of thing. But then as time goes on, you know, back in those days, you had not festivals, like Night of Joy at Disneyland. They had the Christian Nights, or Knott's Berry Farm, or Magic Mountain.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd close the whole park down, and then they would open it up like an hour later or something, and it would be all. Those were the days, weren't they?
Oh, we
were just talking about that. We used to go to Knott's Berry Farm all the time.
But, you know, the cool thing is we were a band from LA, so most people are in Nashville because it makes sense to tour from a hub where you can come home and go. You don't, you know, you're way over here in LA, so you can't.
Yeah.
You know, you're out. If you're out, you're out.
Yeah.
And so it was fun for us to run into people that we knew in the industry just from being in it and from meeting people at GMA and just, you know, knowing them because they're like Christian music artists and you knew who they were, and then you get to meet them and you kind of become acquaintance kind of friends. And so we'd run into each other at those things and all that kind of stuff. But then Word, our record company, they paid for us to open for Whiteheart. That's how. That's kind of how it works.
Okay.
You know, and then we had a couple of like rap, hip hop kind of. Was hip hop even the thing then?
Oh yeah, but those guys from was it JC Crew was there from Sacramento?
JC and the Boys.
They were so good.
There were two different bands. One of
I
the
don't know
first
how
half
they
of the tour and
physically how they managed it.
Yeah, they were awesome.
A lot of energy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, they would bounce off the stage physically. It's like, dude, you're not. Is this rugby or what is this? It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's funny.
But we opened on tour for them, and because we lived in LA, we would be out like for months and months, and we had a motorhome that we bought, and then you just spend a lot of time with the people you're on tour with. And so we just kind of got to know each other, and you know, then
well, the first half of the tour, I mean, it was the Tales of Wonder tour, and it was a landmark tour in a lot of ways. It was just what you were describing earlier, that sometimes when the Lord enters, that whole tour, there was something going on. I mean, people coming to the Lord. It's small towns in Iowa, one place I remember specifically, just streaming to the altar, you know, and we would only do altar calls when we knew that there were a great set of counselors that were going to gather these people up, because we're going to be gone tonight. But what you need is the continuity of a relationship, someone who loves you with the love of the Lord and has got the open ears to hear what you need to say, and the big arm to put around your shoulder when you need it, you know. So that's but that was happening in spades. So we were good friends on the first half, and I remember when I did play that session, and one of the songs was hers, and it was like, I was talking to this today with some people. I think songs have emotional rooms. Where do you see this song? Where do you sit in your heart, or where do you and your heart sit in a place in relationship to other people in this song, with the nature of the lyrics, the weight, the tone, the color of it, you know, that song. And it was Rain on Me, and I just thought, boy, and then I found out that she wrote it, and I just thought, what? I'd like to know more about her.
He loves me for my songwriting.
But the first half of the tour, we were really good friends. We were friends with everybody, and you just didn't want to mess up anything that was happening, because it was so spiritually good. And we had crew members that came to know the Lord on that tour.
Wow.
We had, I mean, and so on the second half, though, I remember this because it was somewhere in Iowa. I played pickup basketball at the YMCA, and I caught an elbow, and I had like 8 or 10 stitches above my eye.
Geez. Oh,
and she used to work in aesthetic dentistry in Beverly Hills, and I won't say anymore this time.
Please,
I won't
no.
say about all the
There's a
famous
story there.
smiles.
We'll let you keep
Well,
that.
I'm not going to say another thing about all the famous smiles you were in. All right,
Hey,
so
how many famous mouths have you seen?
No.
Hold on.
It's on
No,
my
no, no.
list.
Well, so anyway, I had this.
Wikipedia?
So I had these stitches that need to be taken out, and she said, "Well, I can do that for you." And so we were in the state of Washington, and she took out my stitches, and she was nearby to do
Yeah,
that.
I had to be like really
You had
close.
to be really close.
And boy,
Yeah, my
Yeah.
heart was beating.
yeah, anyway, as it progressed over the course of time, and we were very respectful because it's just, you have to, people are and they are looking in on your lives as you do that and seeing, are
Yeah.
we real in what we do? Are we conducting ourselves in a good way? And because everything was going so well spiritually with the tour, that we just wanted to be respectful for that. So we hung out, but it grew and it grew until, I don't know if you want to tell that part of the.
Oh,
geez.
it's such a long.
Well, it's not. Basically, you're better at selling it. So we played at Magic Mountain. It was Thursday. It was Holy Week,
It was at the tour had ended.
and we had one more date.
I flew back to LA with you guys.
Yep.
And the girls took the motorhome back to
Okay.
from Louisiana. I mean, it's a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And so we were talking. It was on Thursday night, right? No, Wednesday night. Took her to a Thai place, and she was quite upset because she thought this is the end of it because you're going to go back to Nashville, and I'm going to be here in Los Angeles. The tour's over, and she didn't eat a lot that night.
I must have been upset because that never happened.
And so anyway, I
And
got
you
that.
only exercise if you have to.
It was Thai food too. That's the thing.
It's great.
It's great food. I know.
It is. So I got back to Nashville, and I thought, I'm not really sure that I can live my life without her. And so I it was back when, you'll know this, there years ago as with your career, it used to be double miles were on major holidays. You would burn through double miles.
Yep.
I spent my double miles, and I had Goodwill furniture. I had this nice piano. I had Goodwill furniture. I just didn't care about any of that stuff. But I had a nice car, and I left it at the airport.
Oh,
So
I know.
everybody in the band was like, oh,
Wow.
you left your car at the airport?
It must be love.
Must be love.
So I flew
Miles
all the
in
way.
the car.
So I flew to Los Angeles, and unbeknownst to her, and it was Easter weekend, and she was out with her family, and I checked into a hotel and then proceeded to bombard her answering machine at the time.
Yeah, this is before cell phones. So I get back, like, it was kind of late,
It was late.
and there were
About
like
30.
25 messages on my
She's not
my
there.
answering machine. So I start listening to them, and I'm
Wow.
like, it's Mark, every one of them. Oh, okay.
No nerves involved.
I guess you're not back yet, so give me a call. Yeah. And this is back when it was long distance. You had to pay for it. Remember that?
yeah, pay for
You're
every-
young, aren't you?
Yeah. No, I remember long distance.
I remember
Any-
that too, yeah.
Anyway,
I got in a lot of
so we
trouble.
have this conversation on the phone, and he's like, hey, Taco Bell closes in just a few minutes. I haven't eaten all day. Can I call you back? And like, this is like,
It was 10 o'clock.
my
It was
heart
10
is
o'clock.
breaking, and I'm like, oh no. So he's just a jerk like the rest of them. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I hang up, and I go, and I take my makeup off, put on my old pink bathrobe, which I still have. And my roommate comes to the door, and she's an actress, of course. It's LA, right? She's an
Okay, of
actress. She's a
course.
good actress.
Really good.
And she comes to the door. She goes, the Santa Monicans for renters' rights are at the door, and they want money, and you need to come talk to them. And I'm like, now this is LA, so 10 o'clock on Easter Sunday, having a lobbying group come to your door. It's possible. It's very possible.
It's possible.
This is not like even raising any suspicion in me.
Right.
So I'm like, Susan, can't you take care of this? Because don't you see that like my life is ending here? And she's like, no, you're the one who gives him money, to keep our rent control apartment. I'm like, oh, guess I have to do everything.
She sold it. She sold it well.
And so I come out there, but who's standing in the doorway in an Indiana tank top, but ta-da! And here I thought he was talking to me from Nashville, but he had blown those miles and flown all the way to LA. And he gives me a big hug, and we have 90s hair, both of us. We've got
big hair.
And he hugs me, and then we separate. He looks at me, and he goes, "Well," and I said, "Well, what?" And he said,
so I'd given her my whole spiel. Will you spend the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And she heard none of it
because he was probably mumbling anyway. But but then he had to say it again. Yeah. And then he got all hot and everything, and I thought, oh no.
Well, what you did, she left the room. She says, yes, and then leaves the room. I'm like, yes for this minute, yes for. So she goes back in. I was wearing my Indiana tank top because I'm highly symbolic, and I'm a basketball guy, but I am a little. Anyway, so she comes back. She's got the fan, plugs in the fan, trains it on me.
I'm like, I'm not gonna find the man of my dreams. He asked me to marry him, and then he internally combusts, and it's all over. Exactly. I wasn't gonna let it happen, guys.
That's so funny. You grabbed the
fan.
And so then I'd rented a Mustang convertible, and we went up PCH and found a Denny's, and I ate the left side of the menu.
And then we went for a moonlight drive up
I was so nervous.
Highway.
I was so nervous.
He was so romantic.
Oh, what a great story! Like I would have never, honestly, in thinking about asking this question, that is never the story I would have thought that the answer we would have gotten back. Like that honestly, like. That just blows my mind. I love that. The other question I have is, Brynn, did you eat anything at Denny's?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
Eat my food.
I may not have because
I don't think she did.
I was with my family, and we had a lot to eat for Easter, so I probably didn't. And I was thinner then, so maybe not.
Well, you didn't eat. So you didn't eat much. You didn't eat much Thai with Mark, and then the very next meal you didn't eat much at Denny's either.
Well, do you blame me?
Theme is developing.
No, I agree. It's Denny's. I mean,
it's the only thing that was open. It was quite late at this point, so.
Yeah.
So how
long you been married then?
That's my question.
Sorry, Joe.
No, I was just going to ask that. Go for it.
Yeah.
It's been 31 years. Yeah. August 1st.
Wow.
And.
Yes.
I am.
It's amazing.
More madly in love than I have ever been.
Oh.
But I truly believe in that you can be, whatever, 85 years old sitting on a park bench and still be madly in love. I truly believe that, and because I think God is that gracious. And one of the things about you had mentioned. Growing up in a broken home, and her mother loved her dearly, her dad loved her dearly. It just didn't always work out so well with that fractured. He lived in New Jersey, she lived in California, and her mother, I really admire her because you're a single woman and raising two girls in Los Angeles, and making it work.
Yeah,
she made it work, but what she didn't have. An understanding for, and maybe because she was fighting so hard on other fronts, she didn't have the part about blessing what was inside this woman. So, because she's so gifted in so many ways, music is just one part of her giftedness, and so I just think that for all of us, if we have the chance to breathe on that, to look at the person that we're in relationship with or in our family when we see what they are and to have the privilege to speak that over somebody and then watch what the Lord does to that, because it's amazing how gifts flourish when they're spoken.
Yeah.
And so it's my great joy to be able to do that for her, and I don't run out of things to say simply because there's that much there. So
Yeah.
I'm lucky. Blessed.
Yeah.
Blessed by God.
I am.
And the funny thing is Mark, you said, you're more in love with her, than you ever have been. And it's funny because I was, watching the catch your breaths on your guys' website, which are awesome, by the way. But with that, I'm just watching you watch Brynn, and I'm like, look at him. He's looking at her like now. This is the first time, and that's what I was going to say. And you still see it now, and that in itself is inspiring. It truly is to see that, just to see that love, which isn't forced. It's just it's what's inside of you, and you can't help when it's inside of you that's also what comes out. And so that's a blessing. When I was watching that, I'm like, geez, man. And then here you are, and I can see the same thing. So really, that's just beautiful. And
well, we've had our ups and downs because we're human, normal. But you can't stay married for 31 years. You have to remember the vows that you took.
Yeah.
They're so meaningful, and it's a commitment that you're making.
Yeah.
And it's in sickness and in health, and it's for richer or poorer, and it's just all those things. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to be smooth sailing, and it does take more than just love. You have to work at it.
Yeah. I
this may be a weird jump off. I don't want to take you guys off track, but
no, you're good.
One of the things that I love about the era that we were able to make music and to listen to music, and you even spoke to video. Video was embracing some of that. That various art forms are coming together, and the interplay of all that is intriguing. But one thing that I love about the era that we were able to write in is you could rock out, but you could talk about God, and there'd be scripture, as you were saying, scripture floating in it, or if it wasn't apparent, trust me, when we would write, and there are other people I wrote with as a staff writer, we had our Bibles by our side, and just because like, look, I may think this is true,
right?
But I don't want to be writing a song and saying something that actually may not be quite true. I mean, but all that to say is, if you believe that Jesus is the Lord of all of your life, what can't you write about? I used to get secular interviewers from newspapers, the big city newspapers, and they say, aren't you bored writing Christian music? It's like, why would I be bored? Because it covers every aspect of my life, whether it's my relationship with this woman, and if there's a hard time or I've said something incredibly stupid, which I have a remarkable gift for, or like the song Somewhere in Between was about all these divorced kids that we saw on the road, and how do they pull their lives back together in some sort of get the hemispheres of their very lives to come back together in some way, or a song I wrote on my solo record, Breakdown. It's there. We could write about life, and whereas I love worship songs, and they're absolutely important and necessary and all that. But I also think that when you're writing life songs, as we call them, there's a worshipful aspect to that, because it's an act of surrender, or it's an act of riding around, God made convertibles, because it's like how much fun it is to be with all of you. And by the way, that's the only song in the Whiteheart catalog that Billy and I, horn players for the Gaithers, is the only song we ever played horn.
Oh, how funny!
It is funny. Yeah, and I saw that in the video. I was like, look at them. And actually,
I know.
Actually, back then I played trombone and Matt played trumpet, so we're like, hey, we could be
do
cool
this
too.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no.
All that to say, though, I think that that's what I loved about that music of that era. I even loved the videos of that era because they were expressive of all of life.
Completely.
And
They told a
Well,
story.
we got criticized some because our songs weren't like Jesus-y enough.
Oh,
But it was like, well, wait a minute, because my heart is so sold out for Jesus, and
Yeah.
that's the heart that's writing some of these songs. 'Cause
Right.
I think it was many of them were mine that were criticized.
Oh.
But it's like I would use my ability to write, because I wrote the lyrics and the melody. I mean, and the music on a lot of things. In fact, I didn't
Yeah.
really co-write that much until I married him. But yeah, so I would like write a song to tell somebody something that that was really, they were hurting and I could see something, or I wrote "You'll Never Know" for a friend of mine who was just kind of messed up, and
yeah.
if you don't surrender your life to God completely, you'll never know what
Right.
He has in store for you, because He won't force it on you,
Right.
Right.
and you'll never know if you don't surrender it. And so, it's dangerous being friends with a good songwriter, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their next song might be about
Exactly. That's why people are afraid to date Taylor Swift.
Bingo. By the way, you should also be afraid about rolling your chair because you will kill the dog.
I know our dog, you guys were both in like office chairs with the things on the bottom, and our dog is so dying to like be sitting next to us that she's lying over those
Don't
plastic lights. And that does not look comfortable, Dee Dee.
Oh,
She
yeah.
has to be as close as she can.
Yeah. Don't move. Don't move.
Yeah,
If
no.
we hear a big yelp, yeah, we'll know it's a dog,
Yeah,
not one of
yeah.
you guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's
Not one of you.
that's one of the things about being a pastor too, is the closer you get to somebody, you gather your sermons. You're like, I'm going to write about that. We're gonna, and hopefully not to meddle, but it's just like, wow, there's some people going through some stuff, and I can say,
Well, we're all so much the same.
Right.
I mean, your problems, we're all human,
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not like you're pointing somebody out because they did the one thing nobody's ever done that before. It's like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Well, and to the point, I think earlier is we all have these gifts that God's given us, and what we do with them and what He uses us working through us, they're just all, I mean, it's all for His glory. You don't have to have a record or a video or some kind of a platform. God's already given us a platform when He sent His Son by saying, hey, there's a way now for us to have relationship and to basically invest, like the Holy Spirit, to invest in people and growth. And just for me, Joe's a pastor in a prison, and I, work at an airline. I mean, the amount of times that I can talk with staff who are wearing a pin that they shouldn't, that has a cross on it, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I should take this off." No, don't take it off. And we have a conversation, and suddenly titles shed, and now it's just two people talking, regardless of what position we have. We're able to talk about the Lord. And that's a family that we're in. It creates that unity that is not just, I mean, it's found within the relationship, obviously, of husband and wife, but it's found within the body of Christ. And so to open that up, it's really cool to see that, I don't know, the platform is for everyone to grab. But to your point, Brynn, is what's, what are we going to do to fully surrender to see what God's going to do through us. It does take surrenderance.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. The
Well, that's kind of the soul breather message too. The duo that we started doing in 2012, actually.
yeah.
We kind of shed our rock and roll
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
a little bit. I mean, it's just a different kind.
We still love rock music.
Oh, we still do, but you got to have a full-on band and an electric player, and and all that.
Well,
and,
it's whatever before you. I mean,
Yeah.
if I don't know if you guys cook, she's a crazy great chef. So
great.
if I did not
My
run,
wife
I
is-
would be Jabba the Hutt.
That's why you run.
It's one of the many. Actually, I would say probably the songs I write by myself, probably 70% of them I've written while running now.
Oh, wow.
we're words and music, and sometimes when I come back here, it's like, oh, good gosh, man, what were you thinking? You play it out, it's like, ugh.
If I
Maybe
ran,
not.
if I
Maybe
ran
not.
and wrote songs, it would be, I hate life.
I can't catch a breath.
Please let me
Soul
die
breather.
now.
Yeah, soul breather.
You might have a
Yeah.
lot. There'll be a lot of songs on your knees because you're just hurled over trying to catch your breath. Here I am on my knees
I need water.
in my
living
neighbor's
water.
lawn.
Yeah. That's awesome. The four of us need to write a song together.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. It sounds like we're good making of songwriting right here about running.
So, no, Soul Breather.
Well,
you
but
know,
that's part of for me. For one of the things that came in, there's a story, and I won't get into it, but where the name Soul Breather came from. But if you, two of the magical places, in the Bible, when it says, the earth was without form and void, and the Spirit of God was moving on the face of the waters. That is something that's so sublime an image that I can barely even speak to it. But then, right away in Genesis 2, then, and he says, and the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed in his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living thing. For what is what I say? Because I have, believe it or not, I have a site bookmarked in my computer, and it's the U.S. Census. And if you go to that site, you'll see it's not only the U.S. Census, it has a barrel that's rolling, and it's the world population.
yeah.
And it's dazzling to see how much it grows in a short period of time. But I've done some research on this, and even in identical twins, there's a couple crimes in Germany, in France, but one specifically in Boston has started this, where twins would say, "Oh, I didn't do it. He must have done it. Oh, I must." But there was some.
Can you imagine that, fellas?
I've
I
done
could
that.
imagine.
Joe has done that all his life. He blamed me for everything.
Always pointing at him.
But even farther down in your guys' genome trail, there's a place in I think it's in either Switzerland or Germany that went way, way down and found fragments of DNA that were different in identical twins.
Yeah.
And the case in Boston, somebody was eventually indicted for it. So I say, if and he could have been Henry Ford. God could have been Henry Ford. He could have mass-produced the Model T out of all of us.
Yeah.
But he didn't. Why? Because everyone who breathes his breath is here for a very specific reason and purpose, to my mind. It's no one else can be you but you.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
and the fact that he breathed into us means that there's a reason we need to breathe into somebody else. That's the gift. So when you find that thing that is unmistakably, redeemably you,
Yeah.
and that only you can do under his great vault of heaven, and you get to do it for somebody else. And you know what? We get to experience the joy of having to exercise that gift that we've been given. And there's that April rain thing again, that smell that is like the earth is coming alive.
Yeah.
And so for every one of us,
Yeah.
I mean, it's when I look at that census barrel roll, and I go from time to time and just look at it again and say, that's my commitment. Because there are people out there who don't know that they're that loved and have that much purpose in their life.
Wow. I'm going to take
Very
a look
powerful.
at that, because that is
too.
powerful to see those numbers and realize there's people that don't know, and sometimes
There's a
we get-
building in Sydney, Australia that has it on the side. If you go downtown, that was one of the first places I saw it with world population.
Really?
And that
Wow.
struck me. Yeah.
That's insane. So that's pretty cool. But man, very very well said. Because we can so easily get locked into our own little world. It's what's in my community, my family. It's just what's like right here, and not realize that it's the person I'm staying next to in the grocery store that just doesn't know that they're loved and that there's purpose and that God sees them and they're valuable. And we take those for granted. And I can say, as I'm getting older, I do see the world a little bit different. You walk into the Walmart and somebody's just walking past you, and you just, for whatever reason, choose not to say hello. to somebody who is also made in the likeness of God, and you just pass them on by. But what did we let go? What opportunity did we let go? Where are they on their way to? What are they going back to? And we take that for granted too often. And I can say, especially in my line of work working with inmates and people who are coming from broken homes, people who don't think that they're valuable, that there's no worth when they look in the mirror. It's definitely a humbling thing to be able to see them and see them hang their head low, but at the same time say, man, God sees you, and I see you, and you have a purpose, and this isn't your story. Your story's not over. The greatest thing is what we've done in our past becomes a part of our story. It becomes a part of our testimony, but it doesn't have to define who I am. I'm defined by who God says that I am. And, so knowing if we can, if everybody can gather around that, which, and I with that census, I saw that on your website too. And I was like, man, that's something I just never thought about,
Well, and just speaking to that, so we've both played in prisons and done things there. I could not do what I just heard you do, because I know that God has laid his hand on you to do that. It may not be for your whole life, but I hear the passion and the way you just said that. You are in the right place. And I am not equipped to do that. I would crumble too much. I could have a day and a half and I would be gone and useless to the free world. My sister's a nurse. I could never do it. I'd crumble.
Yeah.
She's was brilliant at it.
Yeah.
And so I hear what you say, and I say, well, he's in the right place.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is to realize that we're right where God has us for now, at least for this season. We may never know, and the question comes, you're going to retire from there to any position. I'll move when God moves me. And I can tell you this, I never thought in my wildest dreams, as well as Matt never did, that I'd ever move out of California, that I'd ever be where I am now, but here's where I am. And many people who serve the Lord can usually look at their life and say that same type of thing, But anyways, I don't want to take too much time from you, because I see our time is getting up there. I do want to go into a little bit more soul breather. So I did see, you have the Catch Your Breaths, which you have a couple of them on there. Those things are such cool little bite-sized, inspirational nuggets there that I was like, man, so I was like, is there a book or something that might come out with these, or, and it's clever, Catch Your Breaths with Soul Breather.
Well, thank you. There is a book coming out that I'm working on right now with that, and
that's great.
Try a few things with it that, to my knowledge, haven't quite been done. But the fact that musicians are part of this, there's some stuff we're going to do.
I'll look forward to that.
The Catch Your Breaths are. Because I think we all need that. I need to do that as well. The phrase of "catch your breath" is part of that. But and it is that privilege. If we get, my gosh, in this day and age, they always say if you get 5 seconds on the internet with somebody, you have to galvanize their attention enough to hold it for that period of time. I know that people's time is valuable. We know that too. But I think that if we give these people just little bursts of God's love towards them, and some of it will be a little bit interwoven with some personal story as well. So,
that's very cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
That's awesome.
We haven't done anything. February will be 2 years that we, it's hard to be an independent musician and to make all that work and do it all yourself, every bit of marketing and every bit of everything. And so we kind of took a break from that, but we've really been feeling like God wants us to continue doing Soul Breather. And then he needs to finish his book, because he's an amazing prose writer. I mean, his songwriting, and he's really a gifted prose writer, as you can tell just by the way he speaks, And so he needs to finish the book, and I just think it's time to work on some more kingdom-based music.
Yeah, so we've been doing. I've been doing some stuff for. We had a wonderful friend that has encouraged us to. I've had a lot of people for years tell me that I should write for film and TV and things like that. And so we've actually been writing some things like that. And one of the great things in the past was always there'd be somebody when you're in the studio, somebody sitting right there who was so good at what they did. I mean, our friend Richie Biggs, who's one of the top 2 engineers at Facebook now, but Richie's in the Civil Wars, and he was Charlie Peacock's house engineer. He did our house. He was on our tour. He was the house engineer, and Richie's just enormously talented. He engineers like an artist, and there are guys like Jeff Ball, tremendous engineers that were sitting next to you, and good producers and great players. And so, but now if you're in your room yourself, I've had to learn a lot of those skills myself. I wish I would have paid attention a little bit more, but I had other roles, and the machinery's changed. As you guys know, you guys make music, and you know how much that's changed. But then to ask of yourself to hear things in this space that I'm looking at, and imagine what that space is musically, sonically. How am I going to? How am I going to walk into that, take an idea of a song and blossom it through the various instruments? And and partly why the canvas of Soul Breather, which I always call musical canvas. We don't have a lot of rocked out guitars now. I still love all that. Yeah. When I hang out with Gordon, that's what comes out. Yeah. But and thank you to all my wonderful bandmates for all their talents. Yeah. Crazy talented people that I'm so grateful for. But she's got this finger picking thing, and different than the way she sang in Rachael Rachael. There's a pristine clarity to her mouth. I know this will sound weird to you non-musicians, but how you capture that on a microphone and the clarity of that, and how that sits in a place in the song or in the space in the track. Mm-hmm. How do you make and what words do you put in that mouth? She's great at putting her own words into her mouth and carrying that to the forefront of a song. So now it all looks different. It doesn't sound like Whiteheart. It doesn't sound like Rachael Rachael because the instruments are different. Even if it's this instrument. Yeah. Right. Yep. And so hearing all those things in relationship and the color of words and the weight of words and the weight of an instrument, all that stuff gets different. So Soul Breather now is, to me, in a lot of ways, really intriguing to investigate that aspect of it. You were just saying earlier, your life will, who knows what you may be a world evangelist in 10 years. Who knows what God has planned for you. Right. There were a lot of people that were really unhappy with Picasso when he left his blue period because they love the guy, old man with the guitar, and I love all that stuff. Yeah. I'm not a huge Cubist guy, but he needed to move on to express that stage, And when Michelangelo was chipping stone when he died when he was 88, I mean, and the poet Tennyson said, men will rise on the stepping stones of their dead selves to higher things. Wow. So that means the good and bad of your life. That means the good and bad songs. Yeah, it means the everything. Jeez. But it's going up, people. Yeah. We're all going someplace.
Exactly. That is. And that is
I'm
true.
certain we're all going someplace.
Yes, that's true. Yes. Someplace. Yes.
I'm just so grateful that somebody was kind enough to say, you can. Mark, you can come along too. Yeah. It's like, really? Whoa! Thanks, because I sure don't deserve that.
That's true.
He said I do. So
exactly. Now I know we're getting late on time. I want to ask this, and then we can let you guys go back to your evening again. Thank you.
And the dog.
And the dog's lying across those plastic things, and it's all, what are you guys doing up there? And I'm going to preface this with the story. So, Mark, I met you one time, so it's kind of funny. Now let's go all the way back, 1998. I was living in California, signed a record deal to Freedom Records, and moved to Nashville. And I was at GMA. And I'd never been to GMA before. I'm just walking around, just my eyes wide open. I'm like, I know you. You're Steve Taylor. Look at you. Look at I know you. And I'm just like, just going crazy looking at all these people. Well, I happen to go across the radio booth, and the glass enclosures where everybody can see in, and so you and Billy were in there, and you guys were doing an interview, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to sit out here and just, just pinch myself. I have a badge that says I'm allowed in here, and I'm looking at these guys, and you came out, and I stopped you, and I said, hey, Mark, you obviously don't know me at all, but I just want to thank you for your music and what it's done for me. And you were just so gracious, and you just said, "Oh man, you know what? Thank you so much for that." And you're just like, "What are you doing here?" Me, I just want to talk about you. And you turned that around and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm in this band," and and I had like a stack of these CDs that you pass out. It was kind of the pre-releases that you would pass out before it actually had its. I think the release date was coming the next month, and you said, "Can I have one of those?" And I gave you one. And you said, I'm going to take this home and I'm going to listen to it. And you have my word. You've taken all this time to listen to what I've done. I'm going to take time to listen to what you've done. And I'll never forget that, because I walked away going, man, with all these albums and awards and all of this, like, to actually feel seen by somebody that I've been watching, really, really completely changed a lot, as far as looking up to you and your music and realizing this is somebody who loves people. This is somebody who loves Jesus, and it was just real. So I thank you for that, and I preface that into this with both of you. How with being in the music industry and being on tour and having crowds, cheering and buying your product, how have you been able to just remain so just very grounded when so many people you see, it just kind of goes to their head? Because as much as you openly, just kind of welcomed me into your conversation, your world, I've also had a lot of people like, I don't even know who you are, and it doesn't matter. So, what in your life has just allowed you to kind of keep that? And obviously your faith is very, very strong, but maybe you could just speak to that just a little bit.
I'm very, thank you for telling that story. I'm very honored by that. But she will tell you this. People still send me a lot of things, but I always I listen to them all. And I'll tell them, I want you to know that it may take me a little bit of time, but because I'm not going to listen to it when I've been working all day and my ears are tired, I want to listen with a set of ears. So because if you work that hard on it, I'm not honoring you if I'm giving it a casual listen.
Yeah, we always listen to things that people give us, like actively listen.
Yeah.
Like sit there and really listen. And we always want the lyrics. Send the lyrics.
Yeah.
I think, but it goes back to my mother again, as I was telling you, what a great listener she was. And I saw how she valued those kids who were sitting on that bench beside her. And but also, it's just, I truly do believe, and she does as well, in what the message of Soul Breather was, is if God so loved the world and loved every one of them, if there are 99 people out there, and he's out there, and it's dark, and it's storming, and he's looking for one, I need to do the same. If I'm going to be in any way, shape, or form anything like him. And I think, it's interesting as time goes by, and you were talking about here, your understandings have shifted over time.
Yeah.
I think in some ways it's almost getting simpler. I need that if I'm truly trying to serve like he did, it's going to get simpler in some ways. I can think too much. This is a person who was saved by the living God from a cocaine addiction in a worship service and never took it again after that.
Wow.
And to have this sitting next to me tells me night after night that the purity of that belief and what that redemptive act is can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. And I just got to be part, if I get to be part of that some way, if I can be his hands and feet in some ways.
Well, and I think that when Jesus said, you know, treat people the way that you would want to be treated. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody wants to feel like, you know, they're less than you are because
They're
why?
not.
Because you write songs and you can sing and play. Who cares? I mean, they can do a lot of things that I can't do,
Right.
you know, and I- so it just, if you put yourself in, nobody wants to be treated that way.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you put yourself in that position, how would you feel if somebody treated you that way? It's like, I never want to do that to
Right.
someone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I don't, because I'm a human being. But I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus was just so right in saying, you know, just think about it, people. You know,
Yeah.
treat people the way, if you were that person, how would you want to be treated? And
Yeah.
it's just, you know, just because you've had a certain amount of fame, and you know what, we did that a long time ago. We haven't had fame for a long time, and that's fine. You know, it's fine, because I think that sometimes people, it becomes their identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not something that was an opportunity and something they did. It was who it became who they were.
Yeah.
And that's very dangerous, because so many things in life are fleeting, and you just can't do that. You just can't.
Yeah.
Your faith and your hope and your identity has to be in who you are in Christ. Period.
Yes.
And it's, yeah.
Very
I was
well.
listening to on, and thank you so much. I appreciate that. I was watching an interview with the lead singer of 10th Avenue North. I can't remember his name for the life of me right now. But during this questioning, somebody asked him, you know, like about the gift that God's given him in music. And he flipped it around and he said, it's not the gift that God's given me in music. Like, I can lose my voice tomorrow. I can get into an accident and I won't be able to play guitar. Like, the gift that he's given me is life and salvation, that I can share it with other people. Like, don't look at the gifts that God's given you and say that that's the only gift that he's given you. No, the gift that he's given you is far beyond that. It's bigger than that. And I think sometimes we make God a little just too small in our world. Like, okay, you've given this to them. What's mine? No, it happened many years ago. And to your point, if there's going to be searching for one of the 99, then it's not just based off of a gift. It's based off of a love that God would give his son for us. And so it's more than that. And so I appreciate that grounding. I think that's true. It's not based off of talents and gifts, because tomorrow all of us can wake up and have something completely different that God shifted. You know, so
For sure.
thank you.
That is for sure.
So-
What was the name of your band, by the way?
It was a band called Red Line, and we were on Freedom Records, which had The Cry and Hocus Pick. So, but it was actually Pamplin Records, which was John and Dino Elefante's, that actually ended up bringing us out, and then we ended up signing with Freedom for whatever reason. But yeah, it's funny. I learned a lot. You know, when you guys talk about, well, they changed your hair, they changed this. I'm like, oh man, it's just so funny how they're like, hey, this is what you need to say. Don't say this too much. Say this just enough. Like, it's like, wow, man, this is kind of a trip. Yeah. So I was out in Nashville for close to 2 years, and I started going to Bible college at the same time, and then moved back to California. And yeah, so you know, it was a period of time, and I got to see and learn a lot. Some good and some interesting.
Oh, yeah.
gosh, yeah.
Oh, pull that curtain back. It's kind of sticky sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's hard. You know, I don't know if there's a wonderful book, Letters to a Young Poet. It was Rainier Marie Rilke wrote these letters to this guy, and this guy was wanting to be a poet, and he ended up not being a poet, but he had the humility to say, this guy wrote me all these letters. I wasn't able to be that person that he was imploring me to be.
Okay.
But he talks about the essential loneliness of what it is sometimes to be creative when everybody else is telling you what to do.
Right.
And it's an interesting, you might find it an interesting read, Letters to a Young Poet.
Letters to a Young Poet. I'm gonna have to look that up.
He says all see, most existences are inexpressible. Events are inexpressible, taking place in a realm where words have never entered. And most inexpressible of all, more inexpressible of all, are works of art, mysterious existences, the life of which, unlike ours, endures.
Oh, wow.
And so when you're making art,
Yeah.
you're making sometimes, and if you go to that place where you're doing what you feel called to do, not what some A&R person told you to wear or do or whatever, or say or whatever, and you're just who you are, and you forge ahead on that lonely but necessary path, that's when great art gets born.
Yeah,
So,
that's
very good.
That's true. That is true. Well,
Thanks for sharing that.
Matt,
I have one more question, really fast, and then we'll go ahead and let you go about your evening. But I'm curious. Joe and I, we've started this podcast, I don't know, a couple of months ago or so, just to kind of have fun and connect, and so we did one on, and we would normally review albums, and we did one on the Don't Wait for the Movie album, and I was reading as I was researching. I found that intentionally Rick Florian's name was misspelled on all of the albums. And that was the funnest fact I think I've started going now through every single album to say, like, oh, wow, how did this come? So I'm just curious, how did that come about that you would misspell Rick?
Was it misspelled by accident at first?
I think it was misspelled by accident at first, but you have to know it. Rick is, oh my gosh.
He's one of our best
You guys
friends.
would love Rick. He is just exactly what you saw. First of all, he's one of the humblest guys ever. He has no idea how good he is. And he can still sing like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still a crazy great singer.
Yeah.
But so even, and Gordon and I and Rick, we'll go to lunch together. We tend to hang out more than, I mean, the rest of the band, we still see each other occasionally, but the three of us, we text each other all the time, and we always text Rick's name wrong. It'll be anything. Still to this day, we'll put. I mean, it starts getting bizarre, where it looks a little Scandinavian. Now it's definitely. What is that, KwaZulu? Or, it gets weirder and weirder and weirder because, I mean, there are only so many mathematical possibilities after that point.
Yeah, right.
But we recycle. But yeah, that is still going on. It is still going on.
That is so funny. That was the funniest thing. Joe and I were sitting next to each other. We were doing it in Seattle, and I'm like, what? I'm like, we're going to do this. I'm going to say this after this song because this is funny. So it just showed a real good, fun sense of humor as well. And so,
we had so much fun in that band, and still do. We were wacky. I mean, like a lot of bands on their days off, they would go to a hotel and hang out or whatever, and we'd rent snowmobiles and be in Yellowstone National Park, and I mean, go to Vegas, football games and basketball games. I mean, it was fun, and our crew was just part of us.
Oh, our tour, that Tales of Wonder tour, it's crazy fun.
Really?
Yeah.
It sounds like
But
great.
that's just the people were.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
Man, that's
Okay,
awesome.
well, thank you. I was curious, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take my shot.
it's still going on.
Still going on.
That's hilarious.
Hey, you could be like Joe Rogan and just do a 3-hour interview.
I know. Wow.
It hasn't hurt him.
I know it really
You
has.
guys, but I speak blessings on you guys because your questions are great and your hearts are great.
You've
But
obviously done
seriously,
your research.
You've
too.
got some wonderful. I can't understand why they would have chemistry.
Yeah,
in
it's
the-
odd, isn't it?
Really weird.
I
Anyway,
don't know where this came from.
yeah, but seriously, people need that. We will tell people about your podcast.
Well, thank you very
Awesome.
much. I appreciate it, and just very humbled to be able to talk to both of you.
Yeah.
You have no idea. I think I've been blessed more than maybe even some of our listeners could be through this, and so I appreciate your insights, your vulnerability, and just your passion not only for each other in your relationship. Like, that's inspiring. I just have to say, not only coming from a broken family, but both Joe and I have broken families with kids outside, and so to see 31 years and to see the love, but I truly believe that comes from a love. First, it's the vertical love, the love that comes from our Father, that then we do the horizontal love to one another. And so it's really inspiring. And so thank you so much just for being on this podcast and for sharing with us and sharing your evening.
Well, thank you for having us.
We're very honored.
It's been fun.
So, anyways, well, I'm sure we'll talk again. If we ever get Rick on the podcast, we'll call him a lot of different names too. Just, I'm reading it wrong
He'll
here.
love every minute of it.
Yep. Just like
He'll answer to anything. So,
That's funny. Anyways, thanks again, guys, for sure. And for everybody listening, you've been listening to Twin Speak Christian Music and Other Stuff with Mark and Brynn Gersmehl from Brynn from Rachael, not Mark, and Mark from Whiteheart, and of course my lesser half, Matt Prainito,
and Soul Breather,
and Soul Breather, and but anyways, subscribe, click a like, do whatever you want to do with that. Other than that, be a blessing to other people, be a blessing to God in everything that you do. Matt,
be good people, everyone. Thank you so much. God bless you. Bye.
Bye.